10.
Hello and welcome to Imp's LOP Radio Adventure. If you're listening in podcast form, to just Imp on LOP, I think, what have I called Imp's LOP Radio thing? I think on YouTube is what I've called it, or just LOP Radio on YouTube, or Lords of Pain YouTube. It's the official Lords of Pain YouTube channel. My name is Matt Mayer, aka Imp, aka The Implications of Lords of Pain. Columnist. I've not written a column in over a month because of the real world situation. Hopefully at some point I'll get back. If you do care about my written form, I have, this past week, I took part in a former right side of the ponder, Mazza. He's been interviewing and talking to Lords of Pain people from all over the years. I think last week I plugged, Hustle's one had recently dropped, so I was plugging that. This week, so much more. I followed Shinobi, and Shinobi's made me laugh because, of course, for over-the-top editing amounts for podcasts, just that topic made me laugh. I was like, oh yes, I've lived that life. But yeah, so I've done an interview on there with Mazza, so I have written stuff. But if you want to know more about me, yeah, you can go to the Laws of Pain forums and read Mazza's isolation interviews. And mine went up yesterday. I divulged and I used it to vent, and I just got everything off my chest. It was written when I sent in some of the stuff. It made me laugh because I was reading it yesterday, and with some of them I was like, "Oh, I must have been tired on that. I've gone off on America. I must have been tired." So sometimes you see the tone shift with me. You can tell which days I've sent it in on. It's like, you sent that in on a Friday after your late night show. You were tired on Friday and had a bit of a grump. But yeah, I used it as a getting everything about the current situation off my chest, being as open and frank as I could about everything about my journey, the early podcast world, the early Lords of Pain world as well, the ups and the downs. I was as frank and honest about it all, and it was quite a nice weight off the chest in terms of the current situation as well. This week was the first week that I have watched wrestling again. And I know this is a WWE Money in the Bank 2020 predictions video, but I am self-indulging for a second. So, no to do every now and then, because I'm tangent all over the place. But this was the first week that I've gone back to actually watching wrestling. The only one I have been watching regularly, or at least semi-regularly, is AEW. I've completely tuned out, really. When I say completely tuned out, it's in the modern day sense, in that I'm not watching full YouTube clips and I'm not watching the show. Obviously, stuff comes across my Twitter feed, and it's very, very wrestling focused, so I get quite a lot of wrestling updates, so I know what's going on, even if I don't watch the show. I may not have the entire picture of how something 100% went down, which is why I get my Twitter feed to be as wide a breadth of people as possible. Yes, I love having people who are really enthusiastic about AEW after being tuned out, because that's kind of the world I fell into. But I also really like having people who are really into WWE, and they tweet about that in a happy light as well. I like the mix. It kind of helps. I get a point of view from all over the place. It really does help. But really, I'm... I'll try and get my sentence right. I have got notes, if you can't tell. With Money in the Bank, as well as the interview with Mazza, kind of brushing the dust off and getting a bit of relief, just getting a lot off my chest, that really did help, and I felt kind of happy and excited to actually watch Raw again this week. So far I've watched both Raw and AEW. In the UK we don't get NXT till midnight, so we don't get NXT in a proper official manner until midnight, unless you've got BT Sport, which I'm not forking out for. That is so big. The payment, no, especially not in this condition, this world condition either. Another tangent. So with Monday Night Raw, I actually was able to get into it and enjoy it, which does mean I'm at least a little bit updated on Money in the Bank, which was the other reason for it. I have done it before, where I've done previews of pay-per-views, having not watched anything, and been completely lost, having no idea what's going on, and it has an effect on the preview show. The preview show, whenever I've done that in the past, it's not been the best. I've been stumbling over my words quite a bit. Maybe halfway through the show I get tired because it takes so much effort trying to make stuff up for a pay-per-view where you've not watched any of the build. At least in this case, I made sure to watch the go-home show so I knew what was going on going in. It's not the biggest card in the world. It is, and it's certainly a unique and interesting card. This could be quite a short show, given the fact there's, 5 matches? And 2 of them happening at the same time? So, who knows what's going to happen? Well, to be fair, that final match could be anything from 30-minute mad dash to... what was the comedy I brought up the other day? Oh yeah, It's a Mad, Mad, Mad World, like the 3.5 hour comedy epic. Yeah, I'm going back to the 60s for my film references. That's something I've rediscovered with my kind of doing less wrestling watching. I've had a bit more free time, which has really helped with the current situation. But with... sorry about the really loud sniff just there. But with the more spare time, I've re-found my love for cinema, which has evidently died down a bit. And I've refound it in, watching epics. I've got, that's the kind of thing I've been wanting to do. Really long films where I watch about an hour of them, do live stuff, then come back, watch the next bit. That's another tangent, I know. But yes, the main event, I guess I'll call it the main event. The pre-taped ladder matches could go anyway. But I'm going to try and predict and preview them in some fashion. And I'll start off with those ones so I don't send... everybody who is still listening after my rambly intro, I will be talking about the ladder matches first, then the World Championships, then the women's, and then then the Miz and whatever. These are obviously... it's the full card before SmackDown. And quite a lot of people will listen to this show, going by the numbers, quite a lot of people will listen to this show after SmackDown on Friday. So this is going out Thursday night. So it's 7 p.m. in America. It's 10 past midnight for me. So it is before SmackDown has aired. It's normally I go live a few hours after the AEW NXT numbers come out. Normally I'm live within an hour of something mental happening. This is a nice week break from that, where I'm not... nothing mental is happening. We'll just apologise. I've gone live and immediately my nose started with it. No, I'm fine. It's just a really weird one, just all of a sudden. Anyway, I'm going to have to sniff through this because there isn't anything for me to solve it with. I've not thought ahead. My setup is, as long as I'm healthy, there's nothing wrong. And now my nose has gone mental. Awesome professional start to this feed. Amazing. Anyway, let's get on with the bloody thing. So, the WWE Money in the Bank ladder matches 2020 or 2020, depending on your country or region. And we are getting 2 ladder matches once again, with world events changing what would normally happen quite a bit. So, both of these matches have already been recorded. I think the entire pay-per-view has already been recorded, if I'm not so mistaken, unless it's just specifically these 2. For they're filmed at WWE Headquarters, with the matches not being your standard Money in the Bank ladder matches. No. In these ones, in case you've not been watching WWE, you don't really know what's going on with these matches, and for some reason you're listening to me as your point of news to get information. With the Money in the Bank ladder matches, the briefcases will be hanging atop WWE Headquarters in Stamford, and the superstars will start at the bottom, start at the ground floor, and will have to find their way to the top, climb the corporate ladder, the risk is worth the reward, and get all the way to the top, and pull down the briefcases, which are on the roof, and they've done up the roof as well. There's a ring there as well, so when they get to the roof, there is a proper setup of a ring surrounded by conifers or something. It's a fancy WWE Headquarters roof. Just put trees around the ring. What's better, the AEW crowd or conifers? Which, as in the employees around ringside making noise for AEW, or WWE planting trees. Just surrounding the ring. That made me laugh when I saw that. Anyway, so there is a proper ring set up on the roof, so maybe you get your more traditional ladder match spots there, or because it's on the roof, and we've had threats of people killing the other one in a really weird twist. I guess on the normal Money in the Bank formula, it's like, no, I'm going to throw you off the roof. You will legitimately die. Oh, that's a bit different from a big ladder stunt. Okay then, risks are, when I say the risk is worth the reward, obviously people saw that as a bit as a COVID pun. Of, oh, that's a bit of a bold one to make. Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if they saw that of, oh, somebody get thrown off the roof. Well, the risk is worth the reward. And they didn't think it through. But anyway, so the other twist is both of the ladder matches for the men's and the women's. There's 6 in each. It was like, oh, 6, that's a little bit less. Yes, that's because of obviously real life situations and also the fact that both ladder matches will be taking place at the same time. Okay then, that is definitely a different idea. So it's, in terms of predicting something like that, like my immediate thought was, oh my god, that's the Raid. I love it. It's because I've said before that I can selfishly admit that even though I don't like and I don't want to support the method in which the creative part is happening in terms of what has had to be put on the line to make this entertainment, it's kind of like, especially somebody who's not living in America, watching America, what America's doing. I rambled about that too much last week. This week's like happy, exciting. It's somebody abroad watching that. It seems mental. So there is that distance, and it is a bit. I can at least say that, but I can also selfishly admit that I am excited for it. Like when WWE have their backs put against the wall, they really do nail it, and they've done it again. Like when they do a pay-per-view where they haven't announced the card, or when the card gets destroyed and they're forced into a corner, sometimes they can absolutely nail it from that situation. And this is another one, backs up against the wall during this whole situation with everybody isolating at home. They've nailed it again. Or at least on paper, they've managed to deliver something that seems exciting. And diving into that cinematic world. They did it for WrestleMania, they're doing it again here, where the main events are these crazy, elaborate, high stakes, high concept matches. I love it. And with... I'll go through the competitors then. That's not... In terms of predicting it as well, it's mental to think, because I've got to predict 2 matches at once unless they kind of count as one thing. I don't know if part of it would be a pacing thing where they can cut from one match to the other match. My immediate reaction was, oh, it could be different level ninjas on each floor, like the Raid. Yes, that'd be awesome. And then from the Quick and Painless podcast showed me... I've seen the advert before, but it's just the Super Bowl advert where it's the wrestlers brawling through headquarters, WWE Headquarters. And at the end, there's a CGI explosion, and he didn't mean the CGI explosion. It was more of, oh, it's going to be like this, and showed me the trailer. And my immediate thought after watching was like, oh my god, yes, CGI explosions. I don't care if they look crap. I don't care if, given the current situation, they are blatantly just rendered over the top of something that clearly didn't happen. Or they smash a window or something and it's blatantly a bit crappy looking. I don't care. I want my CGI explosion. That'll be the only thing that's missing. Of any kind of brawling fight we've seen at WWE Headquarters, the one thing that Imp wants is a CGI explosion after somebody gets chucked out a window. Like in the movies where the explosion happens and we kind of like, well, what caused that explosion? It wouldn't explode like that. I want that feeling. It's the over-the-top, massive... and you can make it massive because it's CGI, it's not real. So, yeah. My expectations are not in the realm of reality. I'll be perfectly honest here. This isn't like a wild, worst-case scenarios games thing where purposely book it as bad as possible. It's like, no, anything can happen here. And possibly not CGI explosions, but I'll keep my fingers crossed. But, again... What's actually going to happen is so in the air because they're forced to be creative and they're off location. So your normal wrestling predictions brain, even who's going to win. In a normal world, you can read what's come beforehand and kind of figure out who the favourites are, what they might be going for down the road, who could need the briefcase the most, who would do the best with it. Normally you can predict this sort of thing, but given the current situation where it's like no one's got any idea how the rest of this year is going to play out. And it's a bit... That means that these pay-per-views are going to be like wildly unpredictable just because no one knows what's around the corner. And they get... That's in the entirety of life right now. Nobody knows that. Entirety of life. That, of course, includes animals. What am I talking about? With it, obviously, in terms of human life right now, nobody knows what's around the corner. which then when you go down the ladder in terms of importance, that's still true when it comes to wrestling. And that means these pay-per-views are unpredictable. How nice the feeling that is. And it's been forced to be creative, given the situation. It happens. So, enticing, yeah. Anyway, so the competitors, I've realised I've banged on about it for like 7 minutes and not mentioned a single name of who's actually in the thing. So let's go through the blokes first and then we'll do the lassers. So first, I'll go from left to right on the image that WWE have on their site. Otis Dozovich, Aleister Black, Daniel Bryan, Rey Mysterio, AJ Styles and Baron Corbin. Still feel... It's like every one of those competitors was on WrestleMania. What am I saying? I was going to make the point of... For some reason, my brain went, yes, this is just still the small selection of people they have available to do the thing. And I use WrestleMania as an example, which obviously there's loads of people on WrestleMania, and loads of them were on WrestleMania who haven't been on Raw since, like Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, whatever. They've got a smaller selection of people. That is true. My reasoning that I was about to give is nonsense, so I probably shouldn't have even said it. But it's live, it happens. So it's still working with that smaller selection, so you got 6, and that's fine. Of course, with the women as well, that really compensates for it. In terms of a creative way to say, well, we can't really do the massive 8-person one, we just don't have enough people. But we could do 6, 3 from each show. That seems to work relatively well. And of course, if you put the women in there as well, then you don't really feel it. And they've got this high concept idea as well. They did the ladder match at WrestleMania. Whilst fun, I can totally agree that a standard Money in the Bank ladder match, just at the PC, it doesn't feel main event and special. This feels special. And it feels different. Just because of the crazy idea that it is. And for the women, Carmella, Shayna Baszler, Nia Jax, Asuka, Dana Brooke and Lacey Evans. And again, in terms of like lots of predictions you're seeing, there'll be a lot of talk of, this person deserved that, they could really get the leg up, or this person's been doing well, they could really use it, like who could use it the most type of thing, or in terms of like the spots that are going to happen, whether you could call it that with a pre-taped thing, or they're still called spots, if it's just segments or whatever. Like, who knows what's going to happen on each floor? Is somebody actually going to get chucked out, or is it just going to be a boring fight brawl through an office? Will there be a photocopy a bit? Surely. Is it going to be boring office, or is it going to be over the top office? Because this is a wrestling company's office. Do they do it up a little bit? Especially as there's a chance there'll be less employees there, given the current situation, and given they fired so many. But with this creative way of doing it, like, who knows what's gonna... Like, my worst case scenario, just to put it out there, I said I wasn't doing them, but this is a not funny one. Edge versus Randy Orton, for me, is worst case scenario. Lots of walk and brawls. It's essentially a tour of the headquarters. Some people might find that interesting. I'm looking for silly fun. What AEW gave me last night at Daily's Place, that was perfect for what I want. Silly fun. And the memes that have come out from it as well, which is like that kind of, to me, shows that people enjoyed it and that they were in on the silly fun nature of it all, was the amount of memes this morning. Like, a lot of people ate that up and really enjoyed it. I was one of them. So that's the kind of thing I'm looking for. Like, enjoyment and silly fun, really creative spots and ideas. Just let them run riot, do whatever. That's why I like the CGI explosion. It's silly and it's stupid, but it's over-the-top fun. So that's really what I want from this. And of course, the big point, like the only prediction I can really make for this match, in terms of what could actually happen, because I've got no idea about the winners. It's a predictions thing, so I'm going to have to pick somebody. I guess for the men's, it's either Aleister Black or Baron Corbin. And it's one of those ones. I'll get to that later. I've set that up. But in terms of actual predictions for the match itself, the only thing I can for sure kind of bring up is AJ Styles threatens to chuck Rey Mysterio or Aleister Black off of the building or out the building or whatever. You've set that up now. You've mentioned it on Raw. AJ Styles made it as a jab, and then Aleister Black referenced it as well. It was like, you better pray that I don't rise or don't get back up. Is this like, yeah, they've set that up now. Therefore, you've got to follow through. Just like in that match with the Bray Wyatt match, I want to say it was Dean Ambrose, could have been somebody else, where he was doing the flaming table spot, and the PG crowd obviously like, oh my god, flaming table spot. We've not seen that since, I guess, Foley Edge back in 2006. Like, oh my god, that's insane. It's been about a decade since we've seen a flaming table spot, and this is PG era, so it's mental that it's happening. They've set the table on fire. They are doing this. Nope. The idea was to have that threat, and it was meant to be how dastardly and evil that would be, and the hero just survives having to go through that pain. Which, wrestling's slightly different. And of course, in the story, you've set that up, and then you don't use it in any fashion. You have set up chucking somebody off the building on Raw. And it was repeated as well. And of course, the Money Bank stuff has all been taped before these Raws have been done. So they know what happens. And they have teased throwing somebody off the building. So that is my only prediction, really. In terms of like an accurate, actual thing, aside from CGI explosions, aside from them starting on the ground floor whilst Flight of the Bumblebee starts playing and they make their way through. They make their way through the... I've got very different... It's more like Supermarket Sweep, I guess, in my head, with the frantic running about. That's the... Or Rat Race, or, Mad Mad World. Mad, I got to say, at least say the name of the film, right? Mad World. So many mads. It's like, just, tripping over each other's feet to try and make it to the elevator or something. Vessel Talk came up with a spot that I was like all thumbs up for, where Baron Corbin's like, I am so smart, I'm just going to get in the elevator and press the button to go to the roof. What a genius. Before the doors close, somebody else gets their hand in and presses all of the buttons, and then the doors close, and Baron Corbin's stuck in the elevator with it stopping on every single floor. It's like, yes. I love that idea. Just go with it. And that works really well if he wins. Because he's like, I'm so smart, and then he gets completely done in, and he's just taken out of the equation, only to show up later. That's perfect for either him winning or him, just losing out. It works either way. It's perfect comedy setup. I guess I'm looking for a lot of comedy as well. Like the films I'm referencing, they're comedy films, really, aside from The Raid. I'm talking, you can't do a match like this, and when I say ninjas like The Raid, I'm taking a serious thing and putting it in a not serious context. Like this. No, I'm not expecting The Raid. When I say that, that's not what I'm expecting. I'd love Aleister Black to go to one of the floors and just, black mass everybody. Like that episode of NXT, where he was shouting for Nikki Cross because she knew who attacked him, and he came back with a rampage, hitting the Black Mass and kicking the crap out of everybody on his way to the ring, and he felt like an absolute badass. You could just have him clear a floor of staff. Maybe the staff is a bit well trained to be office staff, but who cares? It works. I'm changing my mind. I think I'd like a floor for Aleister Black to do a Bruce Lee scene on, essentially. See, the opportunities are endless, and I'm worried you're going to get Orton and Edge brawling. Like, the thing that did it for me was there was a shot in the trailer for the Headquarters where they showed the office, which looked like it was a office meeting room. I know I know what offices are like. It's been so long. And it's just the meeting room. And it was a very similar setup to the one we saw at NXT, where Edge dropped off of the cage that was on the roof, because that's a decor they've got at NXT. It looked very similar, just like there was a screen on the roof instead. It looked a lot more fancy than the NXT one, but a very similar setup. And when they showed that and they panned up and they had the Money in the Bank logo kind of playing on the ceiling, when I saw that, I was like, that looked so similar to the Edge Orton matches. It just immediately brought back that fear of, what if it's average and they just brawl a lot and you get your big spots maybe at some point? It's like, no, give me comedic circumstances that they have to get, or big hurdles that they suddenly have to get through. Like Baron Corbin getting stuck in the elevator, like Aleister Black having to fight a floor of black belt level office workers. Just give me nonsense. Otis maybe gets stuck in catering or something silly like that. I don't know what Daniel Bryan, where he will be more serious, just going straight for it. Rey Mysterio more athletic, I guess, and AJ Styles pissed off that the others keep out doing smarting him. I don't really know. The possibilities are endless. AJ could just be determined to murder somebody. Maybe that could play up somehow. Or just go straight to the top, and that's his plan as well. Either way, anything can happen. But of course, the other spanner in the works is the women who are. The match will be taking place at the same time. Like, will they interact with the men in that kind of way? Will we get comedic spots like that as well? Will they all start in one line and then race? Which is another point. How are they? They're all going to start. They're all going to be stood behind a line, right? And then just charge forward. Which is why in my head, I've got them starting outside, and then they officially enter once they cross the doors or something like that. I don't know. Something silly like that. Which is why, again, I've got Flight of the Bumblebees playing, because they can trip over each other and push them out the way. So, yeah. But yeah, for the women's... So, I guess for the men's, it's either Baron Corbin or Aleister Black, but they could give it to one of the others simply because, like, who knows what's going to happen. And you can use it to set up a match rather than the normal thing of elevating somebody, truly. They could give it Baron Corbin. Aleister Black is one of those where he's at that level where something like this could elevate him. However, personally, and I've seen this sentiment kind of said quite a bit, he's one of those where, yes, you could give him the briefcase, but personally, having him continue just to win and dominate people, for me, that's way better the path forward. It's like that's the path he's already on, and diverging from it to do the modern day thing of giving him the money in the bank and he's immediately towards the top. No, I like the slow progress he's been making. It's been the perfect pace. When you watch Raw, he feels like he is ever so slowly climbing to the top, and you're getting into the character, which is quite important for me. The Money in the Bank can work against you if you're not really ready at that point. See, I guess, Damien Sandow, who wasn't quite there. The Miz was the opposite, where he just needed that next boost and then he got it. For me, Aleister Black is on a perfectly fine trajectory, which is why I'd maybe give it to Boring Corbin in my standard answer. He can use it, make a do-over for last time. I don't want him to win. They can still lose. But again, my mind's on comedy right now with this match and creativeness. With the women's, I have no idea who's winning this, especially if it's not, I guess, like Shayna Baszler. They've been building... It's weird. They've been seemingly want to build up Nia Jax as dominant, but they keep doing weird things that hold that back. So there was a couple of weeks ago where Nia Jax was like shouting at somebody backstage. I want to say it was Dana Brooke, but it was Charlie Caruso is the only person I remember being in the thing. So they did that, and it was just weird. It was just a little bit odd when she did the scream, and it just came off as a tad strange. I could see what they were trying to do, it just didn't quite work. Then this week, they had Shayna Baszler sat on one MVP lounge sofa. They had Asuka sitting on the other one. Then Nia Jax comes in. She's standing in between them. She's meant to look this dominant badass. And she looks at one on one sofa, the other on the other sofa, and then decides to sit on the table in the middle, looking just awkward. Awkward and weird. Just like, yeah, that's a bit strange. She didn't... as all feeling of dominance went, in that moment, she sat down on the table in between the two sofas. And the next bit, when Shayna Baszler and Asuka both kicked her over said table. Yeah, it was a fun comedy bit. But for me, that's the kind of thing where then if that's a go home, then when you go into the pay-per-view, I've got no expectations of her winning. Because of what you did on Raw, where she did a comedy bit, essentially. And all seriousness that they were trying to build up to, I guess, is completely gone. So in terms of who's going to win, for me, Nia Jax, it's a write-off, but they could have won, wanting her to win. They just didn't do it that well. It happens sometimes. My money would be on Shayna Baszler. Who knows, though? Asuka's just the she's the MVP of these empty arena Raws. She is amazing. It makes me laugh every single time. It's the way that she shouts as well. It's just, I love it. It's fantastic. But with it's gonna be Shayna. If it's not Shayna Baszler, I've got no idea. But in the chaos of it all, somebody else could win. It could be Dana Brooke. They could use this as people have been saying she's improved a lot. Off you go, and just give it her. SmackDown is way more barren, which is another thing as well. Like Monday Night Raw, with Becky Lynch, you have got Asuka, Nia Jax, and Shayna Baszler. But the other thing is what Becky Lynch said on Raw, where something about after the women's Money in the Bank match, she will She either said she'll confront the winner, or she'll be there with the Money in the Bank winner. She'll make them quake in their boots or something like that. Something slightly less Toy Story. But though she said something like that, which makes me think it's got to be a Raw person, which means Shayna Baszler, Nia Jax, or Asuka. It'll be one of them. Which one? I don't know. She's faced Asuka and Shayna Baszler already, so it could be Nia Jax. But what they did on Raw makes me think, no, it won't be Nia Jax. Also, as I was saying earlier, all following what's happening on Raw and stuff feels like it doesn't matter as much as it normally does. Because this is over-the-top creative idea where it really, anything could happen. You've heard my ideas that won't happen. There's so many possibilities. Like, who knows what is going to happen? Who knows? Anything at all. So, with the women's is way more unpredictable for me. Like, with the men's, I've got, like, people where I could envision spots for them. For the women, aside from brawling, aside from going into the... as in, who's going to do the photocopier spot? That's the kind of thing I could see the women doing, probably because I can clearly envision stuff for the men's a little bit more. Whilst with the women, I feel like there'll be a bit more of a brawl and an adventure, I guess. Just taking them through the offices and, oh, you're going to go up the stairs. Like, oh, no, I'm dragging you into this floor. I know you're going to have to be stuck in here doing stuff. Yeah, stuff like that. Maybe you'll get one person into the glass, as in not through it, as in they hit the glass in a comedic manner, like a dong. Just fall back. I know that noise. It made me laugh, Dad. I don't really know headquarters. Are we going to see Vince McMahon's office? That's the other thing. That is the other thing quite a lot of people have been suggesting is, surely if we're having a match in WWE Headquarters, we see the higher-ups officers. Like, for all of my... personally, that's not something that I desperately need, but there's so many people who do, where it's kind of like, yeah, I'd give them that fan service. Even if me personally, I won't get loads out of it, I want the wacky, crazy ideas, over-the-top fun, which, you know, WWE don't normally deliver. But with, I guess, the tour of the office being my other worry, but you could at least have a full-on brawl in there. Like, yeah, to make a full-on mess. Somebody goes through his desk or something, or there's just a table there, somebody goes through it there, and that's highly inconvenient for Vince. What if he's even just working there? Just a convenient spot. Which brings me to the other predictions I've got. I want cameos, which I know in the current situation is extremely unlikely. But they could, maybe, could they? Like, would there be one person there? Maybe, even if it's just a Shane McMahon. Or if it is a Triple H or Stephanie. Something like a boring one. But I want cameos. Just there, working at the office. Again, technically my other cameos were office workers. But yeah, I wanted them to fight Aleister Black like a Bruce Lee films. That's not exactly the same. Yeah. I don't really know. The only thing with the women, all I can envision is like a full-on brawl, and they just go everywhere, and then eventually you get to the top, and I'd assume it would be Shayna Baszler and Asuka at the end. I don't really know. They'd be my assumed two, especially given how Raw ended. Not forgetting this is going out before SmackDown, so I don't know what got set up on SmackDown. I don't know if that gives a clearer idea. From what I can see, I'm not expecting like a massive thing on SmackDown to go, oh, that really could be that person. Like, I'm expecting a tag match or something. I don't know the card. I've not looked either. Who knows? Oh, there's so much that can happen. I'm excited for it. Just a silly, fun thing. Anyway, so in terms of... I think I've kind of drifted off a little bit. So, predictions. CGI explosions is wishful thinking. Aleister Black fights black belt level office workers. Yes. Otis Dozovich gets distracted by food at some point. Yes. Baron Corbin gets stuck in the elevator after thinking he's really smart. Yes. I love it. Wouldn't mind if Daniel Bryan, Rey Mysterio and Aleister Black just end up in a chase, I guess, after each other in a way. For the women, I can't really picture that many spots, but I guess if the men's have got such strong kind of direction in that way, then the women can be the ones who go on the tour of the office, and he can cut to them like, where are they now? What's going on here? Then he cut back to a security camera showing Baron Corbin screaming in the elevator. Just, yes. You got to do that spot. Like, please. Please, yes. Yeah, and then the women can be the ones that brought in Vince McMahon's office and all of those kind of fan service spots. Again, for the men, I can do a load of comedy. It'll work really well. The big spot is who gets chucked off the roof. AJ Styles has threatened to do it. Aleister Black, so surely it's going to be AJ Styles. It's the WWE rule of you set up the table, therefore you set up your own demise. You are going through that table. You set up the thing that you will be going through. So if it's not 100% set up correctly, you're the one who pays for it. So yeah, AJ Styles, he's set up his own proverbial table and will get chucked off the building. Not actually. I haven't decided in my head if I would find it awesome if it was a really crap dummy, or a doll or something, just dressed up as AJ Styles wearing his gear, and he just into a microphone and goes, "Ah!" or something like that. Because they could do the undead thing, I guess. Unless they really want Aleister Black to be just that crazy thing. Yeah. Or they can tease throwing somebody off, but it turns out, oh, no, he wasn't. They can chuck him off and then maybe he rises on the window washer or something. Maybe something, not as stupid. But an idea. So, yeah. Again, for the women, I've got less of a clear idea of what could happen. I don't know. In terms of the men, I can see lots of opportunity for comedy and awesome pacing. For the women's, I don't... It's kind of... With the men's injecting random moments of pacing, the women's could be the bigger core of it. with them doing it. And he cut to the men's for what wacky, crappy situation have they got into now? Whilst the women are the, I guess, bigger core travelling up the headquarters. So they're the bigger bulk of my version of this. Then he cut to the men for a gag or something and then go back to the women. So, yeah. So, winner, Baron Corbin. Winner, Shayna Baszler. Again, it could be... I've got it in my head it could be Dana Brooke. I've convinced myself they could give Dana Brooke it. Just so it's somebody who's not outright like one of the predictable lot and somebody does get elevated. That would be Dana Brooke. Even though I'm not one of those people who's fully like, yeah, 100%, yeah, amazing improvement, should be featured world champion. It's like, no, we'll give opportunities, obviously, but I'm not really into WWE that much anyway right now, so I'm not feeling that towards like anybody. So, yeah, why not elevate somebody? And I don't really think it should be Aleister Black. So if it's not Aleister Black, which that means that it's probably going to be one of the women, and in terms of who needs elevating, I'd probably go with Dana Brooke over Nia Jax, if I'm honest, especially with how Raw was set up. Yes, there's a massive opportunity for nonsense, and I'm all in for it. Right, quick drink of water, because that took me 40 minutes. I thought I'd be done in like 20. Turns out with so much opportunity comes crazy ideas that won't happen. I've got no idea what's going to happen. Hit me up on Twitter at the Damn Implicat. DMs are open if you want to send me wacky ideas, or call me insult words. That also happens. But if you want to tell me whatever, then probably fine. Anyway, so going down the card, this is where it kind of gets a bit more standard. As far as I know, these are just taking place at the WWE PC. When I saw the setup ring at headquarters, I was just thinking, oh, they could do the rest of the matches there. I wouldn't mind that. But yeah. Also, in terms of how the match goes down as well, I really wouldn't want them to start the ladder matches and then cut back to them over the course of the pay-per-view and then you end at the top. It's like, no, one fluid edited thing would be my preferred preference. Stick with it. Anyway, the WWE, I can't believe say it, WWE Universal Championship, Braun Strowman versus Bray Wyatt. Yeah, so the story going into this is, of course, the time that Braun Strowman spent in the Wyatt family and Bray Wyatt using that and taunting him with that. Like, Bray, I am responsible for you being you today, and now you must repent or whatever. Yeah, in terms of, this is an interesting one, purely because of this is one of those where, in terms of title changes in WWE, it feels weirdly inconsequential to me, given the situation. Like, it's, in terms of things of importance, wrestling and who is champion on those wrestling shows is so far down that I really just struggle to figure out what I'd want to happen here. In terms of, I guess, what's happened in WWE, that I've at least cared about a bit. Braun Strowman became champion after destroying Goldberg at WrestleMania because Goldberg didn't want to work any more shows. And Roman Reigns pulled out, Braun Strowman was the substitute. Braun Strowman was never the plan. Hell, Goldberg Reigns was apparently wasn't the plan. They apparently were building up to Roman Reigns versus The Fiend until Super Showdown and Goldberg happened. Suddenly they can shift it to Roman Reigns Goldberg. Feels like a sudden jump and it's kind of out of nowhere. But they did it. They could do it. Then Roman Reigns has to pull out given the real life situations. And now Braun Strowman subs in. So Braun Strowman is champion when he is the third substituted person in this feud. It's a little bit crazy, a little bit interesting. So suddenly Braun Strowman is champion, but apparently there was a couple months ago this wasn't the plan at all. However, I would never have Bray Wyatt be champion in normal circumstances though. This is not a normal circumstance, and it pretty much guarantees that every single one of your main events, because it is Bray Wyatt, will be inventive and it will be out there. It'll be creative, and it could probably be a pre-taped thing as well. You put all of those together, it's kind of like, oh, Bray Wyatt might be the perfect guy at the perfect time for this. Doesn't mean they have to do it here and switch it. They could have Braun Strowman hold on to it for a bit, purely because of that feeling of wrestling just being inconsequential right now. I don't know. Personally, if things were normal, I would have Bray Wyatt go nowhere near that championship. But for me, the biggest mistake they made was The Fiend doing gangbusters in terms of sales and getting incredibly over incredibly quickly, so they immediately put him in the main event for the title. Personally, no. Keep him well away from that. In terms of the character work that he does and the types of rivalries he has, the titles don't really... To me, he's a character where the titles shouldn't really matter. That said, he might be the perfect person at the perfect time right now, because this is not an ordinary world. So yeah, give the belt to Bray Wyatt. Why not? Keep that creative bus rolling, I guess. I don't know where my metaphors go sometimes. But it wouldn't be the end of the world, I guess, if Braun Strowman retains under creative circumstances, given that it is Bray Wyatt. Who knows what could happen in that, I guess, that weird situation. So yeah, that's that. Next up, I've got nothing for it aside from that. I've given all my creative effort to the crazy ideas for the WWE Headquarters fight. But in terms of the actual, I guess, standard matches, it's going to be a little bit odd. The first 4 matches, or first 3 matches, all just standard stuff. Like a Royal Rumble pay-per-view, where you're kind of just waiting for the Royal Rumble. This is kind of what this feels like a bit. Yeah, you got your title matches beforehand, but I don't really care. I'm here for the Rumble. And I very rarely watch back the entire Royal Rumble pay-per-view. Might be the same here. So anyway, the other World Championship match, the WWE Championship defended by Drew... I was going to say Galloway, but that's his indie name, you nerd. Drew McIntyre versus Seth Rollins, as McIntyre makes his first championship pay-per-view defense. I've liked the build-up for this. Seth Rollins being the... just trying to make it clear. It's a trope what's out now and then, but trying to make it clear that he's not got a personal agenda against Drew McIntyre. He's just not the right person right now. Right now, Monday Night Raw really needs a leader who can understand the weight and pressure that being champion has, and Drew McIntyre is not that man. But I am. I am that person. I am the one to carry that weight, and I will gladly take that burden. Yes. Everything about Seth Rollins' character is fantastic. And Drew McIntyre, to his credit, a babyface champion who, A, isn't an idiot, which feels like a revelation, really, given the past years of WWE, where sometimes babyfaces feel like idiot. Whilst Drew McIntyre, those normal circumstances where the babyface would be gotten, he would be beaten down or fall for the trick. No, he doesn't fall for the trick. Biggest reason, we the fans don't fall for it. So watching a character fall for the thing that we are watching, it's that thing of, I can't remember what the bloody phrase is, but it's when the audience knows something and a character in the show doesn't. In terms of something like this, it's one of those things where the fans are so aware of something that the character not being aware of it, it makes them feel like an idiot. So you play off that. You increase the amount the good guy knows of the character that we are following. And it's worked wonders for Drew McIntyre. Like, we, the audience, know things are happening, so therefore, so does I can't really say it. So does Drew McIntyre. Why do you want to say Galloway? What is wrong with me? But yeah, so and that's been a massive part of it as well. For me, he's been a great babyface champion. It just sucks that he's had to do it in this circumstance, and for me, he has risen to the occasion. He's doing a really good job. This is a solid first feud. That helps as well. Wrestling the likes of Andrade and Seth Rollins rather than what Daniel Bryan got like with first feud, Kane. Kane in the mid-2000s. Not quite the same as Kane from over a decade ago. It's like Drew McIntyre's had really good people to showcase his talents as champion against in main events. That really does add quite a lot. And against Seth Rollins, it'll be no different. Fully expect Drew McIntyre to win. Fully expect Seth Rollins to talk a lot of crap, and we'll hear every word of it, because that's how the situation works. With no crowd, you hear every word Seth Rollins says. I thought his match with Kevin Owens was great when he was doing that. Like, really putting the story into the match. It fit into the story so well. Like, it didn't feel like right now, time for the pay-per-view match, and sometimes the story of what was happening on television doesn't always seep through. You just get match. It's kind of a little bit jarring and separate. Seth Rollins at WrestleMania against Kevin Owens, the two of them, it felt like it was just organically part of the same story we've been seeing play out. And those were characters in that story. They didn't then shift to, now it's pay-per-view match mode. But yeah, it was really, really good. And if that crosses over into here, consider me a happy chappy. Even though I'm just here for the Royal Rumble. So, the match I care least about, Bayley versus Tamina. I'm assuming the biggest reason I care least about it is I've watched less SmackDown than I have Raw. Personally, it's personally because of taste of show. Like, in terms of this current era, which I'll put back as starting in October, when SmackDown moved to Fox and we got the new era with Pyro back and everything. For me, SmackDown has shown so many traits of WWE that I don't like all in one show, like week after week, that when I was doing my weekly column series, I really didn't enjoy watching SmackDown. It became my least favourite really quickly. Just, it has all the traits I don't like about WWE in such a contained package. It's just like beat for beat. I'm not enjoying the show. Therefore, in a lockdown period where I'm not watching anything really, aside from, I guess, AEW every other week. So surprise, surprise, I'm not really invested in WWE's attempt to push Tamina back because I don't know how well they've done it. My assumption is fine. Going off of the WrestleMania kind of area. I'll know more from tomorrow when I've watched SmackDown and actually got an inkling as to what's happening. But yeah, I just see this as like filler. This is filler. Everything about it screams filler. Bayley needs to defend against someone. And everybody else, given the current situation, that don't have that big of a roster, all the others are busy. And they can't do Bayley Sasha Banks because that's something to build to. So instead, Bayley versus Tamina. And well, there aren't really lower card stuff to use either. With the big one being, obviously, Sami Zayn, who's Intercontinental Champion, who's, as far as I know, he's at home in Canada. When's he's not coming back. In this kind of situation. You're kind of rummaging around for your lower card stuff. And Bayley Tamina is what we get. Pure filler. Maybe go on longer to try and build Tamina up as a threat. I mean, that's kind of what I'm expecting. They'll do what they can to try and make Tamina feel like a threat, but ultimately she never is. And that's the kind of final, that's the nail for this story, for this arc. Is that, they could try and build Tamina to feel like a threat, I guess, and in the match will be the ultimate part where that happens, but ultimately we all knew she never was. So the investment will never be there. So there's that. I guess you could use it to continue to build heat for Sasha and Bayley, like they did at WrestleMania, where you dropped hints. Just drop more hints here. Make it have some, I guess, long-term relevance rather than me just tuning out and not really paying attention late at night. And finally, in terms of the current setup, there could be more added on SmackDown. I'm not sure though, because who knows how long those Money in the Bank ladder matches are going to be. Who knows what's going to happen there? CGI explosion is worth building up to. That's where I'm parking my horse. That's where I'm putting my hat. It's the CGI explosion happening. And ninjas. Anyway, so a 4-way tag team championship match between the champions, the New Day, versus Miz and Morrison, versus Lucha House Party, versus Forgotten Sons. I've not watched a single moment of Forgotten Sons on SmackDown. I knew they got called up. As far as I've seen, the debut didn't get that much of a reaction from people online. It's more difficult to tell without a live crowd, because again, online it's overwhelmingly negative. But that again is why I've tried to cater my Twitter feed to be a mixture of the two. It's like, yes, I'll always see the negative, but in terms of the positives, for me, it's always important to try and see that, like, what positives are there to try and find. Forgotten Sons, I didn't really see much of a reaction. I saw some negative, and then I didn't see much of a reaction. And the week after that, there was like no talk of it. For me, that's like a worst possible kind of situation, where if you're getting lots of people talking about you because they hate you or whatever, or they really don't like you, that's one thing. But to get no talk, and for me to be like, I can at least tell you a little bit what's happened with Bayley and Tamina. I have no idea what's happened with the Forgotten Sons. It's that inconsequential that there's nothing. I've not heard a thing. I know they debuted to a bit of pitter-patter online, and that was it. So, yeah. I guess, so in terms of predictions... Oh, by the way, in terms of predictions for the last match, if you couldn't tell, yeah, Bayley. just to make it official. For this final match, it doesn't matter, ultimately. Just to nick a phrase from the Revival, or whatever they're called, the Revolt, from their show with Chris Jericho during the week, where they just made a point about, they were told they were going to put the championships on them, or the idea was floated about at a certain point, and both of their reactions was just, but the titles don't matter. What's the point? Like, why do that? You can do something else. I can't remember. I think that was the essence of what they were saying. Here, yeah, I'm getting that feeling. It's entertaining, it'll be fun, it'll be energetic, full of fun. But ultimately, who wins doesn't really matter. I mean, to be fair, it's wrestling. Yeah, ultimately, it doesn't. In the grand scheme of what's happening right now, it doesn't matter. It's just a nice escape from it all to enter this silly world with nonsense happening and CGI explosions and ninjas. I'm crossing my fingers now. It's changed from, oh, that's bloody not happening, to, oh, but it would be great though. As you can tell, I've got nothing for this tag match. I don't know, New Day retain. They just became champions. Unless they want to put Miz Morrison over, but I've not watched SmackDown, so I don't really know. I'm finding out for these lower down matches, not watching SmackDown's been the biggest hindrance to me figuring out what's going on. Because Raw, I at least care about a bit, so I've been paying attention on Twitter, watching the odd YouTube clip. But on SmackDown, I've not caught, like, anything. Well, especially the lower card stuff. Yeah. Again, this feels like filler, but at least it'll be fun, fast-paced, spot-heavy filler. Something I can get a bit more into, but a bit more chaotic. So yeah, even if it breaks all social distancing rules, having this many people in one ring, just to be fair, it breaks everything. Just do the SmackDown. Like, wrestling isn't anywhere near being safe for this kind of thing. In this country, we're debating bringing football back, and the number one thing is, no matter when you bring it back in this current situation or how you do it, it will never be safe. So that's the kind of stance right now. So, yeah, you could bring it back, but it would never be safe. Wrestling is way more contact heavy than football, just to put it in the tier. So yeah, that's a final tangent, I guess, to leave it off on. But the happy note is more what I wanted. I am looking forward to the main events. It does feel a bit like a Royal Rumble, in you've got those before Rumble matches where you can pay semi-attention to and enjoy. But ultimately, the whole thing hinges on that Royal Rumble match itself. And yeah, this is exact. I want nonsense. I want crazy stuff. I don't want just a brawl through the office and maybe they do a few spots through tables. I want pure chaos, pure nonsense. I don't care if, again, one of my ideas of Alistair Black goes to a floor and then there's an office full of black belts that he has to fight through. Like, oh, I shouldn't have opened that door. That kind of thing. Like the Raid John Wick thing. There's a mixture of, yeah. That's what I want. It's not what... I've got a can't breathe. It's not what most people want, but yeah, it'll do. Anyway, I think people can tell I'm starting to trail off and reach the end of the show when the viewers just dip down. It's just like, yes, the viewers are going right down. They suddenly realise that Imp is pretty much done with the show. So, thank you for listening. What are your predictions for Money in the Bank this Sunday? Again, you can tweet them at me, at the damn Implicat. You can... I normally say comment on my comments, I've just not posted any comments to do with it. On Sunday, for the pay-per-view itself, we will have live written coverage on Laws of Pain, and I will also be going live with Laws of Pain Radio Aftershock immediately after Money in the Bank to talk all about it. I'll be knackered come Monday. That's going to be fun. But yeah, so I'll be back on Sunday to do that. The other update refers more back to the podcast listening thing, and this is also on YouTube, so I'll say that in a second. Anyway, yeah, what are your predictions for Money in the Bank? Have you got any bold, crazy, creative ideas for the Headquarters match itself? Do any of them also involve explosions? Or fire, or if you do an inside explosion, that means that the water goes on. And is that good for everybody? I don't know, that could be weird. Anyway, with that, I end the show. I bid you adieu. I'll be back next week to talk about Money in the Bank, the aftermath, and Raw and stuff afterwards. And this is AEW. There was wider news from the wrestling world, like with New Japan putting more shows on hold, with AEW doing their live show and promoting towards Double or Nothing. With somebody else got released. Who was it? Oh no, WWE announced that they'll be doing a action figure they're doing a memorabilia show, that was it, featuring Triple H and Stephanie McMahon, and people were just like, you fired Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins and then announce a memorabilia show. Well, those two, that is their entire stick outside of like the actual doing the wrestling. Like, in the wrestling world, the memorabilia guys, they have so much stuff, they're so into it as well. To fire them, then announce the show, like, oh, that's cold. That's cold. I'm training off into random topics now. Anyway, I'll be back next week. But before I go, I just want to plug all the other things here on LOP Radio or the Laws of Pain YouTube channel itself. Live after AEW, we have AEW, Laws of Pain Radio AEW post show, Dynamite After Dark with Jaman and Jeff. They are live immediately following every single episode of Dynamite. All of those shows get put up onto the Laws of Pain YouTube. It's also up on their personal YouTube and on their the Patreon currently linked to it. I'm going to plug all that stuff as well. They are live on Tuesdays with Kingdom of Honor, which is what the YouTube channel is named after as well. So all of this stuff also gets posted there as well, and the Patreon, which is also linked to it. So if you want to donate anything to Jamman and Jeff to support the cause, I don't know what their cause is. To support the injection of... It's not a cause, I've used the wrong word. Fridays is normally the Legacy series talking about NWA with Miz Fan and Mystic. However, with the current situation, they've reverted back to the extremely popular WWF Legacy series, going back step by step, not missing anything, going right over the entire history of the WWF of what they can, finding every single thing they can. They're currently going through Saturday night's main event episode by episode with as much research as you could possibly wish for. Like, could not recommend the Legacy series any more than I currently am. I think, rate it so incredibly highly. And of course, Sunday I'll be live with Laws of Pain Radio Aftershock to go through all that stuff as well. We've also got more stuff on the Laws of Pain YouTube channel. I can't bloody say words. All night long wrestling podcasts, but I've still not said it right. It'll bloody do. But that's also up on the Laws of Pain channel. It's late, all right. I'm allowed to just. I can give one more go. All night long wrestling podcast. Flipping did it. There we go. Shouldn't be anywhere near as proud as that. But yes, we've got those guys up there as well. Anyway, and don't forget to go to the columns forums if you are that way obliged in the written word form. It's a personal favourite of mine. The columns forum is currently it's blooming a bit in this quarantine period as the Laws of Pain wrestling community kind of just huddles together just to keep chatting to each other. Yeah, so yeah. In the age of Twitter, a lot of that conversation's moved to Twitter, but the Laws of Pain forums recently. yeah, been blooming a bit. Anyway, I'll be back next week at the same time. I'll be live after Laws of Pain Radio Aftershock. Please check out Dynamite After Dark After every episode of AEW. It's already on the Laws of Pain YouTube channel as well. Also check out a Legacy series tomorrow. And with that, I bid you adieu. Adios.